we're going to talk about Angular and Scully, and sometimes we call this JamstackNG. And I'm going to try and explain the Jamstack, and I'm going to also try and explain how to do it in Angular with Scully. So let's kind of kick off into that. So sorry, I started halfway through. Sorry, go back to the beginning. Okay, JamstackNG. I was like, I know this slide looks familiar, but it looks off. Okay, so here we are. So the pink logo here, this is the Jamstack logo. A lot of people don't know that it's there, but yeah, this is the official Jamstack logo from Netlify, who coined the term Jamstack. And so when you're trying to do Jamstack in Angular, the easiest way is with Scully. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. I'm also one of the Scully core team members, so that's kind of why I'm here talking about this. And I love the Angular community. Most people will call me Frosty. So yeah. So let's talk about what makes the Jamstack so cool. Okay. So I coined this to kind of help Angular developers understand, like, there's nothing will make your project as fast, your Angular project as fast as using Scully and embracing the Jamstack. Because it's difficult for Angular developers to understand why they care about the Jamstack. I mean, at least in my experience. Before I tried it, I had zero interest and I didn't even understand the benefit. And then I tried it and my mind blew. I was like, wait, I never in my best app could have ever competed with the performance that the Jamstack gives me. Like if I worked at a company that needed SEO and we needed searchability and we needed to have the least amount of time to serve the page and have the first paint so that we could improve conversion or improve SEO rankings by Google or the other algorithms. Like I never could have done that the way that I can with the Jamstack. And so the Jamstack really is an evolution to make your website significantly faster. Okay. And so that's what we're talking about when we talk about the Jamstack. And this is a quote you can tweet out at people. You can quote me on it. There's not anything you can do. The best of us of all, like, look at our participants list. I'm sure there's some amazing people in this list. The best of us could not beat the Jamstack with just pure Angular or React or Vue. It's not an Angular thing. This is a client side. This is a client side rendered JavaScript bundle problem. So let me kind of keep going. There's three big pillars of the Jamstack. How does it make it so fast? I'm going to try and walk you through these real quick. I'm going to give you examples of each one of these three. And then eventually I'll pivot into Angular, kind of explain how it's unique in Angular. All right. So the first pillar of the Jamstack is caching. So you can make calls during the build that will be cached and distributed on your CDN. What that means is your APIs aren't going to get hit as much anymore because the data that comes from your APIs it's going to be cached, and your app's going to use the cache version of your API calls. So your API gets more secure. Anyway, let me get into each one of these. Pre-rendering, the users are going to see your site immediately if it's pre-rendered. Like, they're not going to have to wait to download all the CSS and all the JavaScript and then see your website. They're just going to see a pre-rendered version of your website. Then they'll download the CSS and the JavaScript. So that's the kind of the pre-rendering speed improvement there, and I'll get more into that. And then there's the CDN. Serving this stuff from your CDN makes it ridiculously faster. Now, most of us are already serving our app from a CDN. I worked for clients who aren't. They're serving their JavaScript assets and their indexed HTML from a server in their network. And I'm like, okay, that's a real easy win to just put this out on a CDN. It's cheap and it's fast. So, but the Jamstack fully embraces putting way more stuff on the CDN than you currently are. Well, than a lot of people currently are, to get that speed out there. So let's kind of walk through each of these. So without caching your API calls, maybe your backend is going to get 1,000 requests per second, right? And if your app goes to the server for all data, right? So imagine the JavaScript turns on, it makes a bunch of requests to turn the app on. Your servers can get pretty well hammered if you're not caching any of the data. And if you use caching, maybe you can reduce it by a factor of 80%, or maybe you can cache 50% of your calls. And so your server gets a lot more stable. You run a lot less risk of DDoSing or like overrunning your server. So caching the data at build time is a huge speed performance increase, and the amount of code required to do it is ridiculously low, and I'm going to show that off today. So this is one of the pillars, is caching your data on the CDN with your assets, with your JavaScript assets. The next one is pre-render. So this is what your users experience during without pre-rendering. So they get your index.html, and then their browser processes that index.html, and it starts to download your JavaScript, and this whole time, and then the JavaScript is downloading, and the CSS is also downloading, and then the JavaScript finally downloads and starts its initial paint, right? So as soon as JavaScript's done downloading, it doesn't immediately paint the whole site for most people. Then it still has to do a little bit of probably talking to your backend to get some data before the JavaScript site is visible. But this whole time where they're downloading the index.html, downloading the CSS, downloading the JavaScript, and then they process the JavaScript and they start to paint, that whole time the user didn't see anything. They just saw a blank page, right? And this is classic how JavaScript client-side rendered apps work. This is not unique to Angular. This is all JavaScript frameworks, no matter how, fantastic or, how many people use them or not. This is how they all work, right? So this isn't unique to Angular. But with pre-rendering, this is what your user will experience. They'll download your index.html, and it's pre-rendered to the view they were trying to visit. And so they see a pre-rendered version, and if you're building it right, they can interact with it. They can scroll on it. They can start typing in input fields. They can click on buttons that will take them to different routes. Anyway, after a while, though, after it's downloaded, the JavaScript will be downloading. And after it's downloaded, they get the paint. But the whole time, they had the pre-rendered version of the site. Once the JS paint happens, the pre-rendered version will just disappear, and the JavaScript rendered version appears immediately. And so the user, if you're doing it right, doesn't really notice that happened, that you switched from the pre-rendered version of the app to the JavaScript rendered version of the app. And so that's mostly transparent to your users if you focus on doing this right. And so this is a much better experience for the users because they're not experiencing just this massive amount of time of nothing. And a lot of us, we've all seen people like Amazon or Google talk about every second that the load time of your site increases, your conversion or your abandon rate or whatever is punished by X%, right? And so it is super, super beneficial to show them the pre-rendered version immediately and then do the thing you were going to do with the JavaScript stuff. In a minute, I'm going to show you how crazy easy it is to get this pre-rendered site, because a lot of us are like, dude, that sounds like a lot of technological difficulty to pre-render all my routes. It's actually stupid easy, and I'm going to show you that today. That's why we're here. All right. The last one is CDN. So if you don't use a CDN, everyone who needs anything, if your server is right here where it says your server and your users are distributed across the globe, then you're going to be paying for a lot of things. First, it's going to be slow because your users have to travel around this big blue sphere that we're on, right? The big blue spaceship. They got to come from their side of the spaceship over to your server, right? And you're going to have to pay for gigabits worth of data every month, and it's mostly the same data transferred every single time. Every time that you do a new build, they're gonna have to download more stuff, which means you're gonna double pay for that download rate. The network's gonna get bogged. It's just not a good experience for the user to put anything anywhere besides a CDN. And once you do a CDN, the CDN puts servers really close to all of your users, so they just simply go right. They download the assets from wherever they are. There's a really close copy that's optimized to download really quickly, and this is what CDNs do. And so this is kind of the third pillar of the Jamstack, is embracing solidly CDNs. Okay, so let's talk about Angular and Scully and how Angular and Scully do Jamstack. Okay, because it is a specific flavor that's different than what you're hearing in the React community or the Vue community, and so we kind of want to focus on that. Angular with Scully, we still focus on these three pillars, okay? And how do we enable you to do them? So the first one is caching your API calls. So there's an Angular service called transfer state. And with just 2 lines of code, you can make calls during the build that will then be cached in production. So I want you to imagine you sell, what do you sell? Jelly beans, okay? So we're gonna go get a list of jelly beans. Today we're gonna have a demo of a donut app that sells donuts. So you can imagine you sell donuts, and you want to go get the list of donuts during the build, and you don't want the production version of the app to keep calling home and getting those donuts anymore. Like, just at the build time, make that call and then cache it so that everyone caches that call. Like, in production, my users aren't talking to my server to get the donuts. They're just part of the release site, okay? And it makes it very, very simple to ship your data along with your HTML, CSS, and JavaScript assets. So that's one. Pre-rendering. There's really kind of two steps to pre-rendering. The first one is finding all the routes we need to pre-render. And the second one is then taking each route one by one and pre-rendering them. And like, it's actually in Scully, we're popping open a Chrome browser saying, hey, render this quickly, take the output at HTML, save it to file, and move on to the next route. And we'll do this for every single route in your system. So it's kind of a two-step process. Find all the routes, render each route. And so, and we have a series of plugins that allow you to assist or to help or to maybe edit the data after it's been rendered. And we can talk more about that later, but this is how we help. Scully helps with the pre-rendering portion of this. And then you got the CDN. This doesn't really change in Angular. Once you're done caching and doing your build to get all this stuff cached and pre-rendered, you should be just putting all this straight back out where you were putting your non-pre-rendered version. Just put that out on your CDN. You may have to reconfigure a couple routes, because instead of one indexed HTML, you're now going to have one indexed HTML for every single route. So there may be a couple bits you have to flip in your CDN configuration, but it should be largely just a very simple change. And so this is kind of how this works in Angular, okay? It sounds maybe more advanced than it is. I'm going to show you how simple it can be so that you can go, oh, I am good enough to do these things. Like, I'm good enough to pre-render my entire website, because it is easier than you think. Or I'm good enough to cache a lot of data calls during the build and save my company a ton of money and security problems. So, yeah, we're going to show you today how easy it can be. All right, so this slide shows one of our clients. It's about to flash back to white. Wait till it flashes back to white. Okay, the one on the right, this is with Scully. Okay, so the website has already appeared. It's pre-rendered. It's already down. The one on the left, this is the JavaScript version of the app, okay? And the one on the right, the Scully version, you can tell when the JavaScript app turns on because that orange bar up top is going to disappear, okay? So they actually finish about the same time. They finish loading about the same time. But the one on the right, you can see, was ready for the user to interact with and scroll, and I could click on any of these click targets. That was ready, within a second, even over 3G speeds. Like, it was very fast. And the other one took much longer to load, and then it took a ton of stuff. So, and again, this one on the right, or the one on the left without Scully, this is as good as they can do. This is as good as they can get it. This is properly architected, as good as they can get it, client-side rendered out. And you simply throw a lightweight Angular Scully layer on top, and you get what's on the right, a much better experience for your users. It is an extremely, and the conversion goes up. Google goes, whoa, this site got way faster. Your SEO rankings go up. Like, your whole business benefits as a result of this. So this is an example of one of our clients, 100contacts.com, who's been very friendly with us, and they've worked hard with us to help us get through some of these beta and alpha questions that we've been working on. So it's a success story that already exists in production. So, and we have multiple clients like this. So yeah, anyway. All right. So I'm going to cover some concepts today in this workshop. How am I doing on time? I got 40 minutes left, a little less than 40, 35 minutes left. Okay. So we're going to, I'm not going to have you guys clone the projects. I'm just going to show you the links. I'm going to teach you how to do router plugins. Router plugins are how you help Angular find all your routes. Remember I said there's two steps. You find all the routes, and then you pre-render all the routes. Sometimes you need to help Scully find all the routes, and sometimes you need to help it pre-render all the routes. And so we have plugins for both of those, okay? So I'm going to show you a router plugin, which help Scully find all the routes, okay? And then we're going to go over some render plugins, which we're going to kind of gloss over render plugins. Then we're going to go, let me go back. We're going to go to transfer state. I'll show you how to cache some calls. If we have time, we can add a blog at the end so I can show you the markdown support. And I know it sounds like some of you have already used this and have the markdown support. And then I'm going to take you to the doc site and just kind of show you around, because there's good references on there that explain all the remaining concepts around Scully. And we'll end with some Q&A at the end. So if anyone wants to save these for later, I'm certainly not going to slow down so that you can follow me. If anyone wants to try and follow me, feel free to attempt that. But yeah, so I've got one repo that says Donuts API, and you just npm run serve on that. And then I've got another one that is a simple Angular project called the Donut Store, and you can just ng serve that, and then you can build out all the stuff, all the Scully features. So yeah, this is where you would start, and then this is where I'm going to start. Is I've cloned these two repos, and I'm going to just kind of walk you through how we would get a Scully installed into a very simple Angular app. So okay, over here, let me get rid of this. Can you see my editor enough? Is it too small? Am I okay? Anyone? Nobody? Perfect.
I think it's
okay.
Good.
It's okay. It looks good to me. Okay, I'm going to move on because everyone says you're good. Okay, cool. So this is a very simple Angular app. I generated it with the CLI, and then I just added some donut-y stuff to it. Okay, so it is not like a great variant of what an Angular CLI app gives you. Okay, it's very exactly what you're going to get out of the Angular CLI. Okay, all right. It has a donuts module, and it has a donut module. Donuts shows the list of all the donuts. Donut shows one donut. So it's like if I went to a website, I had donuts, I show you all of them. If you click on one to buy it, I show you just that one. So that's kind of what this app is. It's very, very basic. There's not a lot of logic in here. I also have an about page, which doesn't do much, but these are the three things. So if you come into my routes, you can see my home route will show you all the donuts. It loads the donuts module. If you go to donut/donut ID, I'll download the donut module. And if you go to /about, I'll download the about module. It's a ridiculously simple app. Like there's not a lot of moving pieces here, I promise. Okay. So I've already served this app. I've got an ng serve going on over here, and here I'm serving my backend with npm run serve. Okay. So if anyone wants to check out the backend, where did my I'm going to take this. We're just going to use the slides. Sorry. I'm going to exit full screen. I'm going to put you over here. Okay. So here we're going to use this. And then we'll just go to localhost 3000 donuts. So this API, it just gives me back an array of donut objects. Okay. So it's a stupid simple API. If I put in an ID, it'll give me back just this one. Okay. So if I do go here, donut/ID, bunny, let me put the B in there. Gosh dang it. No, go back. B. Okay, so if you put in the donut ID, it just gives you one donut back. So this is effectively how simple my API is. You either can get one donut or you can get all the donuts. Like there's nothing going. And by the way, I scraped the Krispy Kreme website to get these donuts because I'm not creative enough to like make donut images and stuff. Anyway, so let me show you what the website looks like. Localhost 4200. Okay, so this is my website. All right, it's written in Angular. You can click on one of the donuts, takes you to the details. You can click on the nutritional facts. It opens up those nutritional facts. You can go back to see all the donuts. Like there's not a lot going on here. Like I said, simple site, list of donuts. Click on the details for the donuts, and there's not much more going on here. The only other thing is the about route. So you can go click on the about route. Why did I do a donut store? Because I wanted to show you Angular. I needed route parameters. Okay, so each of those specific donut routes, I needed to show you those. I needed something that had an API so I could show off cacheable calls, and then we could add blog support at the very end. So that is why we're doing this. So that's why we're doing the donut store. Okay, so let me go back home, and I'm gonna. If I come into my dev tools and if I say disable JavaScript, everyone knows an Angular app, if you disable JavaScript, when I reload here, what's going to happen? Dead, right? Nothing happens. This site doesn't work without JavaScript. This site is dead without JavaScript. And until the JavaScript loads, the user's going to see this. So if it takes a second or a minute to load the JavaScript, this is what they're going to see. Okay. That's not good. Like that sucks for your users. This is not a great, let me enable JavaScript. Okay. So this is not, let me refresh now. This is what they should see. So I'm going to teach you how to do this where they can use Angular, or we can turn JavaScript off action. And this whole website, everything I just showed you will still work even if I turn JavaScript off, because I pre-rendered it and I built it a very Jamstack friendly way. So let's kind of get in. Let's add Scully to the project. This is our first step, add Scully. So I'm going to show you, hey, how hard is it to add Scully? Well, we've made a series of schematics to make this easy. So I'm going to say ng add, because this is the CLI version to do this. And if I say Scully io/init, this is the schematic that will add Scully to your project. Okay. What are you saying? The add command requires to be run in an Angular project. Oh yeah, sorry. I'm not in there. CD code, donuts. Okay, here we are. All right. So now let's run that. Now that we're in the right directory, sorry. When we add this, it's going to go through, it's going to install the needed tools to run Scully, and it's going to take a second. Come on, buddy. This is my favorite part. Oh yeah, last time I did this, I just busted out my harmonica. Come on, man.
Bravo, bravo.
Was that good?
That was awesome. I didn't know you played the harmonica.
I don't. I mean, I know 2 songs and you just heard one. So
all right.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. It's a way to kill time when you're installing of NPM packages. Takes a while. And I know everyone on this call understands. Okay. So the Scully schematic, it's kind of walking you through, hey, I'm doing all these things. Okay. And if you had any errors, you would have orange text in here that's like, hey man, something happened that I'm mad about. Okay. But nothing, everything works right. So like it just worked and I'm good. So it updated my package JSON. It updated my polyfills because there's one more polyfill you need to run Scully. It adds it for you. It opens your app module, app.module, and it adds this piece in there. It adds the Scully lib module. So that's all it really did here. It created the Scully config, which is this file right here. It created your Scully TS config, and it created a plugins file for you to have a place to start writing plugins from. Okay. So that's all. And then it installed all the dependencies through NPM, like Puppeteer and some other stuff that's going on. There's about 15 steps it did. We didn't want people to have to do these 15 steps manually. So we wrote a schematic. So it supports NX. It supports Angular CLI workspaces. It supports NX workspaces. So it's awesome. So you have the support you need to do this. Anyway, that's all that really happened here. So now that we've added it, I don't have to do anything. I can just pre-render my website. Like some of you are like, this is stupid. I can't just add it and then pre-render it. Like, actually, yeah, you can. The first thing I need to do is ng build. And then I'm going to say npm run Scully. Like it's literally that simple. Scully needs you to do a build first. So I'm not going to do the prod version because I wanted to go a little bit quicker. In production, you do the prod version, but for this workshop, I'm just going to do the non-prod version. And then once you're done, you just say Scully, run the Scully executable. And it's going to pre-render our site. It's going to give us a couple errors. The reason it's going to give us an error is because it's going to say, hey, Frosty, I don't know where to find these donut IDs to get these routes. So it's going to tell us, I rendered this one and I rendered this one, but I don't know how to do this one. That's what it's going to tell us. So here we go. Now it's doing Scully. Let's give it, okay, the first time you run, it's going to say, hey, can I do diagnostics? I'm just going to say yes. So it's going to walk us through what it's doing. Created some routes files. It rendered my whole website in 2 seconds, and then we're done. So here's what it's here. Let me kind of walk you through what it's telling me. I'm finding all your routes. I'm going through your app to look for routes. I'm looking if you have any additional routes, which we're not using that, but it's telling me it's doing that. And then it says, Frosty, I'm going to skip this route. because I don't have any config for it, which we'll go and add that in a second. But it said, hey, I did successfully pre-render your about and your homepage. That's pretty cool, right? Like, let's go look at that. If I come up to my dist, actually, you know what? Where did it render that to? Let me open up my Scully. I have so many build for. I've used this repo before, so let me open up my donut store config. There we are. Okay. Where did it put it? It put it in dist static. Okay. So in this static directory, we've got our home route, which will look like this, index.html. Okay. And if anyone here knows an Angular app just has an empty body. There's nothing in the body, right? But with the Scully app, my body's full of all sorts of content here. So like this is the footer that got pre-rendered. This is the body with all the distinct donuts in it that got pre-rendered. Like all this is pre-rendered. It's pre-rendered my home route now, right? So you didn't have to assist it at all to get this pre-render of this route, right? Like it's now done. There's my app route. Normally the app route is empty, but here my app route is packed full of stuff, right? This is how simple it is to kind of get going with Scully. You just say, hey, Scully, do a build, and then you say npm run Scully, and it takes care of it. Pretty cool, right? Like, I want to see in the chat. Give me some rounds of applause. That's pretty cool, right? All right. But, and let's serve this. Let's just serve this just so you can kind of see. I want to show you what this app will function like. Let's just do some poking around and testing with it, right? Okay. So let me open up another tab. And actually, cancel. Let's come back over here. And we're going to set, instead of, we're going to say npm run Scully, and you can add a serve on there because I may want to serve the results of my Scully build. Similar to how you do ng-serve, so you can develop your Angular and have like refreshes and stuff, and like you can see it before you deploy to production. This is what Scully serve does. So I'm just going to run this, and it's going to say, hey, I'm walking through everything. So I'm serving your dist static folder on these ports. The Angular version that is not pre-rendered is on this server, and the Scully version that is pre-rendered is on this server. So I'm going to I want to use the Scully version. So I'm going to click on this. Okay. It's going to come over. So this looks like the exact same app. Okay. And if I click on it, it's going to function like the exact same app. Okay. And I can go back home, and this is working like the exact same thing. Now, however, like over here on this page, oh yeah, sorry. Let me do this real quick. I got to restart this because when you install Scully, you have to restart your ng-serve. So sorry. So let's come back over here. It should just take a second. Get it done. There we go. Okay. So let's refresh this. So if I show you the request for the index.html, this is what it looks like in the JavaScript version, the Angular version. This is what if I come to the network and I do a refresh, let me show you what the index.html looked like in this version. This is what the index.html looked in this version. Fully rendered. Everything was already there. So this is actually really, really powerful when you think about it. I'm going to do something that you couldn't do. We tried it a second ago with our Angular app, and it didn't work. I'm going to pull up the command palette, and we're going to say, hey, disable JavaScript. And I'm going to refresh this, right? This app still works, okay? The homepage works, and then once it downloads, it doesn't actually download the JavaScript anymore. So if I were to try and click on one of these donuts, remember it didn't render those details pages. So this is just going to say, I don't have that, right? But I could go to the about route, and that's rendered. So both of these are pre-rendered. And yeah, like this app is actually working, right? Like this about page was 301 bytes big, like, or 7K. I mean, it was really, really small. And that's not gzipped. So it'd be even smaller if I gzipped it. Oh no, it is gzipped. Sorry, it's 20K non-gzipped, 7K gzipped. So this is much smaller than downloading all of my JavaScript would have been. Okay, let's actually, just to kind of show that off, enable JavaScript, and then let's do a reload. So we got 7K to see the app, but then where's all the JavaScript? 30K, 3K, 6K, 477K, 6K. Needless to say, lots of K to see my website. These aren't gzip numbers, by the way. Like these JavaScript sizes. This is not how small they can get at their smallest point. They can get much smaller than that. If you do a prod build, they get much smaller. But the point is, they're seeing the site for only 7K. They don't actually have to go download the rest of the website to see it and interact with it and start scrolling and clicking and having it work. How cool is that? Like that's stupid awesome. That's a massive performance increase that we never could have done in Angular ever. There's no way to do it, right? And like unless you get into Marble universe and start doing some quantum stuff, like there's no way to do this. It's pretty fantastic. Anyway, I'm gonna go back to Scully because I want to show you how simple it is. Why is that working? Oh, because I enabled JavaScript again. Okay, so if I have JavaScript disabled, when I click on these detail routes, they don't work, right? But if I have JavaScript enabled, then if I start on this pre-rendered route, I can then go here and the JavaScript app is working by here. So even though I didn't pre-render this route, the JavaScript app is working at this point, okay? But I want it to work even without JavaScript. So let's go ahead and teach Scully how to pre-render these detailed routes, okay? It's actually stupid simple. So let's go back to our Scully config. All right, so if you remember back, Scully told us, oi, I don't know what to do for this thing, okay? So we need to add a config for that. So I'm gonna come down into my routes and I'm gonna just paste that config there, all right? And I'm gonna say, for that config, Scully, I want you to use a very specific plugin. It's called the JSON plugin, because I just need you to go get the donut IDs from some plugin, okay? Or from some API. So go there, and then to get the donut ID, I think we say URL is HTTP localhost 3000/donuts, right? And then does anyone remember the name of the donut ID property? I remember it. Anyone else remember when I showed the API? No one's gonna take a bite. No one wants to like double Dutch jump the rope with me. All right, it was called ID. Okay, so I'm just gonna put that in there. So this is all you really have to do. You say, hey, for this thing, let's use the JSON plugin to get the donut IDs, because sometimes you've got donut ID / other IDs. Maybe you have like 6 or 7 IDs. Like, so you have to configure each query parameter individually. So I'm saying, hey, use the JSON plugin for the donut ID. Use this URL and pull the IDs out of them. What Scully's going to do is it's going to end up with a list of IDs, and then it's going to merge those IDs into this route for me. And then it's going to add those to the list of things to be pre-rendered. And then next time, instead of only pre-rendering 2 routes, it's going to pre-render a ton of routes. And this is all, this is very, very simple, okay? So let's tell Scully to run again, all right? So let's say, and I haven't modified Angular, so I don't need to do another build. The Angular code is the same, like, right? The only file we modified was this file. So I don't need to do an ng build again. If I modified my Angular, I would need to do an ng build, but we've only modified our Scully config. So at this point, I'm just going to say npm run Scully. And I'm going to say -- watch. Okay. And this is going to put it into a watch mode. That's actually pretty cool. Anytime I change any of the files now, it's going to watch and rebuild. So here it's pre-rendering all of my apps now. And it's saying, Frosty, I'm saved this route into this index.html and this route into this index.html. So now, like, it pre-rendered everything. It gave me some errors I'd never seen before. Not provided. I don't understand what that means. It worked because it tried it a second time. So I don't really know. I think it's freaking out because of the trademark in the URL. Like, it doesn't like the trademark in the IDs. So anyway, I think that's what that is. Anyway, so now if I come up to my dist folder, let's I should have a donuts thing, and then I got one folder for every single thing, and I've got an index.html inside every single one of those. Cool. And if I format this and go to the bottom, it's got that donut ID for each one in every single one, right? So like I've got the nutritional facts and everything for the cinnamon twist. That was pretty simple. I've officially pre-rendered every single route in this site. Every single route in this simple app is pre-rendered, and I only had to do one config. right? So you're gonna have to config every single route parameter you have, but it's very, very simple to do HTTP calls to get those data, okay? Like imagine you have a complex data structure and you need to get the data out of those complex datas. Instead of property, if you need to turn some complex data into a list of IDs, we have a thing here called results handler, and it can be a function with the response from the server, okay? And so you can actually like JavaScript, you can kind of do some JavaScript over your results and map it into an object that makes sense that you can then use the property ID on those things. So like it's very, very extensible, and you can just use you can use the JSON plugin for a lot of stuff. It's actually really, really simple and powerful to do. Anyway, cool. Now that we've done this, it actually because I ran Scully with a watch, it's also served it up. So let's actually go back to our served thing. All right, so now this is served. This is, if we come over here, it's pre-rendered entirely. And if I come onto these things, it works. And if I refresh on here, it also works. And if I disable JavaScript, the whole website still works, right? So I can go back to the donuts, click, get nutritional facts here, about route, go home, click on the next one, about route. Like the whole website's just working, no JavaScript. Like it's not downloading any Angular here, but my website's still working, okay? All right. No one, I mean, you guys are deadpanning me in the chat. This is cool stuff. I know it's cool, so I'm just gonna keep patting myself on the back. But Brooke, do you know it's cool? Yeah, Brooks.
I totally do. Yeah. No, I'm here.
100%.
I'm just on mute.
Okay. All right.
Everybody's hungry though. You're just making everybody want.
I know, dude. I know. Every time I do this, I'm like, dude, I go get a donut now.
For sure.
If you could, which donut would you get?
Oh my gosh. I've never been a chocolate person. I've always been more like my favorite ice cream flavor is like almond flavor. So I'd go with something like there's like a French cruller. Those are pretty good. The problem with those is that they're pretty airy and they're not very satisfying. But then what are those like braided
twists?
Well, they're actually not braided. They're just more like sloppily made, but they're like glazed.
Oh, the fritters. Yeah, this fritter dude. This is what you're talking about, right?
No, it's like a circle.
Oh, the old fashions.
There you go. There you go.
Yeah.
Yep. Those ones are pretty
too.
good. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I just go with the fritter.
Okay. Fritters are pretty good.
Kill me the fastest. All right. Okay. So we've got this. Let me show another feature though, because we only have 15 minutes left. So let me show you another feature. If you notice, if I look at my XHR calls and I do a refresh on this page, it is okay. Let me turn on JavaScript again. Enable JavaScript. Okay. So let me refresh this. It's once the JavaScript, it's pre-rendered, and then once the JavaScript turns on, the JavaScript still makes a call to my donuts API. It calls the 3,000 donuts as well. So my build calls 3,000 donuts, and in production it still calls 3,000 donuts. I don't want it to call 3,000 donuts in production. I want it to cache the donuts with my JavaScript files, my index.html files. So I'm going to show you how simple it is to get this in there, okay? To get this caching that we talked about. Like it's stupid simple. So we want to pre-render, we want to go into the source app. I want to cache the call to get all the donuts. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to show you a new service that comes with Scully. So we're going to say private transfer state. We'll call it Scully. Is it called Scully transfer state or is it just called? We changed the name. There it is, the transfer state service. All right. So how do I get the donuts already? I do it like this. I say the donuts are equal to this HTTP request. And then I subscribe to that and say this donuts is equal to the response from the server. Okay, so I'm not doing a lot of stuff in here. Let me show you how you're going to do this with Scully. Like part of you is going to be really bothered it's so easy. Like a part of me feels bad that I'm making it this easy. Okay. Because here's the code I have to write. I have to say, oi, if I'm in the Scully build, go to the 3,000 donuts API. But if I'm in production, pull it from the cache. So if Scully's running, get it from here, from the server. If Scully's not running, pull it from the cache. So that's the logic I have to create. Well, we've wrapped that up into one service call for you, okay? So I'm going to say const donuts to, okay, I'll just make a duplicate, and I'll say this dot transfer state dot use Scully transfer state. This takes two arguments. The name, I mean, it's a string of the key that's going to be in the cache. I'm just going to call mine donuts. And then it wants to know, hey, when I have to go to the server, how do I get that from the server? Where's the observable to get it from the server? So I'm just going to copy this in here, okay? Copy this, paste that in here as the second parameter, all right? That's it. So I'm actually going to comment this out, change this to be called donuts, and I'm going to rerun. I'm going to have to, because I've now changed my Angular, I'm going to do a build of Angular, and then my Scully will rebuild, okay? So let's do this real quick. Let's split this vertically. And I'm going to say now here, ng build watch. Okay, so it's going to do a build. Anytime I change my Angular, it'll watch and rebuild. And then anytime the build's done, the Scully will rebuild. So you can kind of watch this. Once this is done, okay, this is done. So the Scully re-kicked in and re-rendered everything. Okay. All right. So now we can go back over to our test app over here. And I'm going to refresh this page. And I want you to notice the XHR that happens is not going to come from 3000 anymore. It's going to come from the 1668. Okay, so watch this. Let me refresh. Actually, on this page, there is none because it embedded the data into the indexed HTML. Right, so like it cached the data. There is no more XHR requests to get the donuts. It's pre-rendered, but then when the Angular JS app bootstraps, it just pulls it out of the pre-render. Let me show you what that looks like, where it cached it. Okay, so we'll come over here, static. I'm just going to pick any of the, no, I didn't do it on the donuts page. I did it on the home page. Sorry. So we'll come here. I'm going to format this. And if we go to, we come to the bottom, we're going to find, sorry, let me scroll up and find, we put a cache script tag in the page. The Scully builder does. It's called Scully transfer state. And then when the app turns on, it actually pulls it out of here. And look, it's got that name donuts, which is what I called it, right? So this is out cached, the initial data. If I change from this route to another route, though, how do I get that route's cache data? Well, let me show you this. Let me show you what actually happened here. Let's actually go. Let's do the exact same thing we just did for the details page because there's only one line of code. So let's just close this up, add it one more time to another file. Go over here to the donuts. We're just going to add the exact same basically line of code over here. Let's just say OI private transfer state service. Bring that in. And then I'm going to copy. I'm actually just going to do this. And I'm going to say const donuts or donut is equal to this dot transfer state dot use Scully transfer state. I'm going to call it donut. And then I'm going to say this dot donut API. No, you know what I want. Do that. Okay. So this one says, hey, if you're in the Scully build, do it here. Otherwise, pull it out of the cache with this name. What are you mad about? Did I mess up its name? Oh, sorry. It's not this. Sorry. Okay. The build's going to refire. Angular's going to refire. All the pages are going to rebuild. Do it already. Scully's like freezing. Oh, there we go. Okay. It unfroze. I don't know why it froze. All right. Come on, bud. Come on, bud. I don't know why it's doing this. Get it done, bud. Get it done. Okay, we're done. Okay, cool. Let's come over to our app now. So now, you'll notice there's no XHR on this page. And before, when I would go to these detail routes, it would make an XHR. Why did you fail? What is going on? I'm going to restart everything because I think it's all freaking out. I don't know why Scully's freaking out. Well, okay. Okay, yeah. When I ran the build over here, okay, now let's run Scully. Okay. You've done, build it faster. Okay, a lot faster that time. I didn't see any weird stuff. Go here, refresh. Okay, so that's rendered. When it came over here, when it rendered this page, it did make a request for something called data.json. It didn't go to the donuts API. It requested the data. But notice the data is not coming from port 3000. It's coming from my file system. It's coming from the build. So this data.json that contains the data for this flower mini page is going to be on my CDN. So now if I browse around the entire app, I'm only requesting those datas, right? I'm not requesting to the API at all. So all these requests are going straight to my CDN, which is extremely powerful if you think about that. Look at all these calls I've now saved from my server from. So this is fantastic. I should have done the harmonica. You're right. Okay, so this is how you cache these data calls for production. This is one of the other crazy performance improvements. I kind of want to take a second and show you another crazy performance improvement that we released just this week. So let me do Scully plugin critical. Let's just pull up the critical CSS plugin. Okay, so you can add this. Very, very simple to add this. You can just import the critical CSS plugin, and like it's stupid what's going to happen. This critical CSS is based on a tool built by Adi Osmani that will scan all of your CSS, and it will only keep the CSS for your page that's needed for just the pre-rendered route. Okay, so what this is going to do, imagine all the CSS your site needs. Imagine you got Bootstrap and you got everything that comes with that. You maybe got Angular material and all the CSS rules that come with that. Imagine if you only needed to load just the pieces of CSS for the home page in order for the user to see it. And then all the rest of that CSS could get loaded later with your JavaScript. That is what this plugin enables. It allows your site to be stupid fast. So instead of downloading, 90 kilobytes of CSS, you're downloading just the bare minimum that you need. And there's a lot of plugins like this out there. Like all of our clients that are using this, we just sent them an email and said, hey, we have this new plugin. It's going to make your stuff even faster. You're just going to import it like this, and then you're going to add it to your default post renders, and you're done, and it just works. And so everyone went and added it, and now they're even faster than they were last week. So this is a massive improvement. This is a massive improvement for free. You just get it. You just got it. It's done. Anyway, so yeah, their CSS is 500 kilobytes. Holy, that's insane. Imagine if you could do this though on them, Olu. Imagine if you just had this and you're like, dude, done. To see the page, we're going to pre-render it and we're going to only load the CSS. How much faster did that get? I don't even want to know how big their JavaScript file is if their CSS is 500K. Don't even tell me how big the JavaScript bundle is. Anyway, okay. So there's the plugin system. I kind of want, there's so much more to talk about. I really can do a half-day training on all this because there's so much to cover. To get the basics and most of the benefit, you just got most of the benefit in this thing. I just showed you 90% of the way. It's just by installing Scully, teaching you to find your routes. That got you most of the way there. You can add transfer state on top. You can do a bunch of other plugins on top to make it even better. And a lot of our clients are doing some really, really cool things to make it better. We've got an A/B testing piece that's getting added. But I do want to take you over to the docs site because I do want everyone to kind of meet the docs and find out how they use them. So if you come over to the docs, if anyone wants to see what I18N looks like in Scully, we've got an I18N plugin. And it worked last week. Does not work today. Awesome. That's so cool. Anyway, I'm going to put a bug in. If anyone finds an issue, just go to Scully.io, Scully on Twitter or on GitHub. And I'm just going to make an issue real quick. This is how you would do it. If you have any issues, do exactly what I'm doing right now. Okay. I have a docs issue. Spanish tab doesn't switch to Spanish anymore. I'm not going to fill in the details because I'm trying to make it quick so you guys can see. Just do this and our team will look at it and get it curated and fixed. Anyway, so you come over here and if you're like, hey, how do I get started? Well, we got a whole series of stuff to kind of walk you through getting started. Installing, building, serving, minimal setup required, and some tips that we think you might want to know, okay? We've got some of the concepts around Scully. What is the process? What are handled routes on how? What is a plugin? So we kind of walk you through this plugin system. And then we've got a reference guide. So any of the moving pieces of Scully have a reference in here. So if you want to know about like the Scully this transfer state service, ironically, the use transfer state, we didn't even document that yet, but yeah, it's here. So, but this is where you'd come to get all the documents. Anyway, so much stuff. Creating a blog, it's one command. Like if you want to come to the very top up here, concepts, learn. You want to create a blog, just click on the create a blog and it's going to walk you through it. Like it's just use the schematics. You've got a blog, you got some markdown stuff, and then you can just start writing your blog with markdowns. And you got a blog at that point that you can build and style and serve all with Angular. And you can even remove Angular so that it just serves up without Angular even involved. It's just a static website. There's a plugin for that called Disable Angular. It just removes Angular, like just takes it out of the page so that your site can just be a static website, pre-rendered HTML with hrefs that just go from one page to the next. It's pretty fantastic. I'm not gonna lie. There's a lot of really cool stuff you can do with this setup. Anyway, I've talked for a long time. There's a lot of questions. Brooke, you cool if I start going through the Q&A?
Absolutely, yeah. Go for it.
Okay. All right. Olu says, what's the advantage to Scully over Angular Universal? There's lots, but one of them is Universal's hard, man. We had one of our biggest clients that's doing the most complex stuff. For years, they've been using Universal in production, and multiple times a month, their website just breaks because one of their third-party libraries breaks their Universal rendering. So they have to go through and find what was the third-party library that broke it. How do we fix it? How do we refactor that? So they like, dude, we use Scully because making Universal still work, keeping it working sucks, and it is true. It's not a task for light heart. Like keeping Universal like friendly to render node, it's not easy. So it's really difficult. The advantage to Universal is that it's going to be faster, but Scully is for much other. If you have an Angular.js hybrid, that will never work in Universal, and that works fine in Scully. Another reason to pre-render versus server-side render in production is server-side rendering in production. You now have a node server in production, and you have to like scale those out, make multiple of them. Just pre-render. And then use JavaScript to render the pieces dynamically you want. Like pre-render most of the site, and then maybe just turn on the pieces with Angular when the Angular downloads and runs. Like there's a lot of reasons why people should use Scully over it. A lot of what I just showed you can do with Angular Universal, but not as easy as we just showed it. And all the pieces that come pre-built into Scully, you can do all this with Angular Universal. But you're going to invest hundreds of thousands of dollars maintaining it and building it just to get it to where Scully's already at. So like you can do it. It's just so much more expensive to do on your own. So, and also pretty soon, Olu, we're about to add a renderer that uses Angular Universal. So you're about to have Universal in Scully. So like the question becomes less of Scully versus Universal, and it turns more into why would I use server-side static site generation versus server-side rendering just in time? Like, so it becomes more of like a paradigm. Do I render it just in time, or do I pre-render it? And that becomes the conversation because we're about to add Universal support. So yeah, it changes the questions. All right. Next question. Do you guys care if I stop sharing my screen? I'll share it if I need to again. All right. Next question. Thanks for asking the person. I have no experience with this. Perhaps I'm asking the wrong questions, but how Scully compares with Angular Universal? Okay, cool. I already kind of answered that. So I'm just going to say answer live. Done. Eris says, do we need to implement all three pillars of Angular? No, you don't have to do the caching. You do have to do the pre-rendering, and you should use the CDN. You don't have to use the CDN. As long as you serve the assets from wherever, it's going to be faster than it was. But CDNs are so stupid cheap. If you're not using one, we should do a phone call just so I can explain how cheap and easy they are to use. Like they're not hard to get into your system. So you don't have to do all three pillars. You don't have to cache the data calls, but you do want to pre-render as much as you can, and you are going to want to use CDN. So feel free to reach out to me on Twitter at Aaron Frost, and we can talk about it. Good question. All right, done. Next question. Do we have a CLI command for NX project? I think what you're asking, Vivek, is does this work with NX? And the answer is yes. So if you have an NX workspace, Scully is the schematics are already set up to run inside of an NX workspace versus an Angular workspace. So already works. Good question. If that's not what you're asking, ask it a different way, and maybe I'll get it the next time. Shai says, so using Scully means not using a universal. Yeah, for now, that's what it means. And it will make your life easier, I promise. And it is cheaper, more efficient, easier in almost every way I can think of, I promise. If you don't believe me, let's just have a phone call. I could be convinced, but I'm pretty sure I'm right on this one. So even talking with the Angular team, like it's pretty fantastic. I mean, there's a reason Netlify is blowing up because of the Jamstack. The Jamstack is legitimately insanely fast. So anyway, if you want to talk to me, Shai, again, reach out to me on Twitter at Aaron Frost, and we can get a meeting, or you can come to anyone can come to our weekly office hours. We have office hours every Tuesday at noon my time, so that's probably in the afternoon your guys' time. Noon is in one more hour for me, just so you know. It's 11 a.m. right now my time, so in one more hour we have office hours. You can come ask your questions. You'll have the whole core team there, and we'll answer whatever you ask. Even if you want to jump on the presentation, share your screen, and have us troubleshoot for you, we'll do it. Or you can just ask your questions, and I'll go all the way deep with you. I'll go as deep as you want to go. We'll answer. Okay. All right. Is there an incremental build system functionality? Let's say I have 10,000 products and I had 10 new ones, and I have to rebuild all 10,000 in 10 pages, or can I just build the 10 new ones? This is a good question. We're building this. This is going to be part of the enterprise functionality for Scully, is the incremental build system. So it's on its way. It's coming very soon. If you have a website with 10,000 products, we almost have a solution for you so that you only rebuild the pieces that need to be rebuilt. So yes, it's on its way. Sorry, I should have clicked answer live. Done. All right, next question. If the user starts scrolling and clicking in the pre-rendered app, and then the Angular app is bootstrapped, is the page going to be reloaded and lose all of its actions done by the user? So I want you to imagine the pre-rendered size is 10,000 pixels tall, right? So I want you to imagine that. And when the Angular app pre-renders, or when the Angular turns on, it renders a 10,000 long thing. The second Angular renders its 10,000 long thing, it deletes the other one. So in the same flash, the page is going to get rid of the pre-rendered 10,000 pixels long thing and put in the Angular 10,000 pixel long thing. So if the user scrolled halfway down, they're going to stay scrolled halfway down. All right. Now, if your website, it's not 10,000 pixels tall because it has to get some data, and then the data comes back, and then it's 10,000 pixels tall, the user is going to experience like this jank when the pre-render goes away and the Angular turns on. And we have some tools to make that jank go away. That jank we call a flash, by the way. And we have a plugin called the Flash Prevention plugin for websites that have a big pause between when Angular turns on and the content is rendered. You shouldn't have that, by the way. It should be your goal to not have a pause like that. But if you have that flash, we have a flash prevention plugin. In fact, 1-800-CONTACTS, remember that side-by-side I showed you? They have, I don't think I'm going to offend them by saying this. They have a disgusting flash. Their flash is not okay. It's so big. It's inappropriately large, but you couldn't even see it, because we use the flash prevention plugin and it just works. So we have ways to help you if that's you. So yeah. And if you want to come into office hours and talk about it, I'll explain it in more detail, because I'm interested in making sure you're successful. All right. Next question. Done. Alex says, in doing forms, what happens when a user is midway through accomplishing inputs and the text boxes, and then the pre-rendered goes away? Okay. So this is something that we haven't solved for everybody, but like 1-800-CONTACTS, we built a post-renderer plugin that it tracks what you type into any of the inputs. And as soon as the Angular app turns on, it takes what you typed and it puts it into the Angular inputs. So the user doesn't experience the jank that you're talking about, Alex. If you don't do that kind of a post render, they're gonna be like halfway typing ALEX, and then the Angular app turns on and it deletes Alex. They're like, oh man, that was my name. I got to start over. What just happened? This website's dumb. They got to start to type in their name over again. We wrote a plugin that just anytime they type in there, it puts it into local storage, and then when the Angular app turns on, it takes it out of local storage and puts it in there. So like we've tried to solve some of this stuff so that it's seamless for the users, but there is a bit of creativity. It's actually, if I showed you the plugin, you'd be like, oh, that was easier than I thought it was going to be. Yeah, way easier. Once you start thinking in a Jamstack pre-rendered way, you start to realize, oh, this is all just stupid easy. These are just simple functions I have to write. Yeah, they really are. They're just simple functions. And so, yeah, we have that kind of support if you need it, Alex. So yeah. And if you want to talk about it, come to office hours. I'll talk to you about it. Eris says, can Scully work with local files like Markdown as the backend instead of Angular API? Yeah, easy. You can write your own plugin to get data however you want it. You want to get it out of WordPress, turn on the WordPress JSON API and use the JSON plugin. But if you want to read it out of some flat file XML YAML thing and you want to transform it with whatever transform you want, yeah, Scully doesn't care. You just build a plugin that reads it out of the Markdown or reads it from the Markdown. If you want to do a blog with Markdowns, that's actually just built in. And if you go back to the docs site and click on that create a blog, you can kind of see what the Markdown scenario is and how it works with Scully. So you can definitely use anything you want as an API, whether it's a file system, an actual API, whatever you want to do, right? So yes, you can do that. Shy, does Scully serve files using NoExpress as well? It does not. I think you're asking in production, and there is no server-side component of Scully in production. So Scully does not run a NoExpress in production. No. It does during build time, but not during like after you ship out all the pre-rendered stuff. There's no Scully server-side component yet. We're going to add one for enterprise, but there's not going to be one for like projects. So yeah, anyway, yet stay tuned for more news that may change, but as of right now, there's no Scully NoExpress like thing in production. All right. Olu says, what is the idea of using Scully with Angular apps where everything is behind the authentication system? This is a great question. If you're trying to pre-render an app that's behind a login, it's just not as helpful. I'm not going to lie. This is more helpful if you have a product site. Like someone asked a question, what if I have 10,000 products? Any site that you care about, if you have something that's behind a login, you don't really care about SEO. Like SEO is not your bag. That's not how you're getting clients. You're getting clients through a different avenue. If there's a hard wall of a login screen before they can do anything, SEO is not how you get clients. If you have a site that cares deeply on SEO, I don't care why, but it depends on SEO, and you're doing Angular for that, then you need Scully today. Like you needed it last week. You needed it when it was an alpha in December is when you needed it, because the amount of financial gain you're going to get just by flipping Scully on is insane. It's insane. 1-800 contacts, like it blew us all away. I knew it would help. I didn't know how much it would help. And so like, just the answer is if it's behind a login, no. But if you're not behind a login and you care about this stuff, you need to be on Scully like today. All right. Next question.
Let's skip down to AJ because a lot of the questions are just the same two people, which is awesome. Okay. I totally appreciate it. But let's get someone else as well.
Okay. So is there an example of using like a CMS like Contentful or Ghost? Yeah, I think we have a couple users in the community. Let me share my screen. I don't have one on my machine. Where is this thing? Share my screen. We'll share it here. Okay. If you really want to get help and find out, hey, who has an example of Ghost or Contentful, I would come to the Gitter. Scully has a Gitter chat. So if you want to come on to Gitter, a lot of people on here are like power users in Scully. There's a lot of these people have committed pull requests to the docs. And a lot of people come in for help and then they end up staying. They end up staying and helping others. So come into the Gitter. There's also the new Discord, the Angular Discord. So if you want to join the new Angular Discord, it's just discord.gg/Angular. If you go in there, there's tons of channels for things like podcasts, meetups, whatever. There's also a Scully channel, and you can go in there, and there's tons of people in there that will answer your Scully questions. Okay, that's over on the Angular Discord, which everyone should be joining. It's a really fantastic place to meet other Angular developers and to get help or to actually, it's fantastic for just lurking and watching and learning as well. So yeah, head over there. But you can also use the Gitter. Also, you come to office hours. But I don't have anything like off my we have some WordPress examples. Someone, the guys at the team at Upstate Interactive, they built WordPress. So if I say Scully plugin WordPress, Scully WordPress plugin, I think this is theirs, built by Upstate. Yeah. Well, no, this is someone else, but this is how you could kind of start using. You could use this plugin, or you could write your own, because honestly, it looks ridiculously simple. You could start using your own to kind of tap into WordPress, or I'm sure there's some contentful Scully stuff or some Ghost stuff. So anyway, I would just kind of look around and poke around to see what other people are doing. But yeah. So anyway,
do you do a lot of lurking yourself?
I lurk. Yeah, I lurk.
Awesome.
Sometimes I don't have anything to say. I just want to make sure everyone's safe and having fun.
That's true. That's a good point.
Yeah. I'm down to just Shy and Olu. So Olu, this one is a question. Scully is free for how long? Scully's going to be free forever. Like Scully's never going to cost anything. There's a couple features that are like for power users that we are going to put into an enterprise package called Scully Enterprise. But Scully will be free. Everything I showed today and tons more will always be free. It will always be open source, and even the enterprise will be open source. But there will be a license required to use it. But yeah, like everything will be there. So yeah, like we're gonna be free for forever, Olu. Like if you're wondering, hey, are we gonna flip this to be paid only in a few years? No, this will be free forever. So, and let me give you a guarantee on that. The initial version of this, Google paid us to build. Google paid us to build it. Okay. And they said it needs to be free and open source. So like we're contractually obligated to make this free for forever because of where we started. We started with Google as like they said, hey, build this, and they paid us to do it. So we can't make it pay only ever. And our feeling, I do a lot of stuff for the community for free. Like I really, really want to give as most of it away as I can for free. But there's some features that are going to cost me a lot of money to build and maintain, like months. And those ones are for the biggest companies in the world. So those ones we are going to have enterprise features that will fund the open source project. So the open source project can continue for forever. So it is going to be free for forever. There's only going to be a few features that are not free. And they're also not going to be ridiculously expensive. So anyway. Should I just go to the top and start over? Because I think I got everyone.
Yeah. That's cool.
Go to the top. All right. Concerning Scully caching, what is the strategy with routes that need to make calls to an API and need to refresh data constantly? So that's a question. So this is a good question, Olu, and I'm going to talk about it. If you have data that refreshes often, and by often, I'm going to say within the hour, okay? You are going to not want to cache those API calls. Those API calls are, for lack of a better term, that is a dynamic piece of data, okay? If you have data that is going to be static for longer than that, up like a day or more, that is technically a static piece of data. And anytime the data refreshes, you have to do a new build. So if your data refreshes every second or every 5 minutes, you don't want to be doing a new build and deploying to your CDN every 5 minutes. That's not healthy. So those calls, you're gonna want to leave those calls as not cached. But any data that is dynamic, and you can just say, hey, most of this is dynamic, or most of this is static. I'll cache these ones, but like pricing and user authentication data and anything user specific, that I will not cache. That is how you do this. You kind of start cutting your app up slowly, one piece at a time, until you're caching the pieces that matter and you're not caching the pieces that you don't care about. So, and again, you don't have to cache any of it. It's just a little bit more of an optimization. You don't have to do that. So yeah. Most of the benefit we saw, we did without transfer state. We only added transfer state to reduce the load on the server. So you don't have to add transfer state. Olu says, if one is caching endpoint data at build time, does this not bring in performance issues, having so many calls to API endpoints at a build time? Okay, so Olu, you're bringing up another good question. So someone asked earlier, what if I have 10,000 pages? All right. And then I'm going to couple that with this question. Olu, what if each page requests 10 times the server? That's 100,000 requests during the build time, right? That's a lot of requests. And if you're a big company and those requests are going to your production API or your production database, 100,000 requests in just a few minutes, your production server is going to feel like it's getting DDoS. Like it's going to get slow and people are going to be like, this sucks. So one of the features we're building right now, it will be one of the first features for the enterprise piece, is we're going to have a data caching layer for the data that's required to build all 10,000 pages. So we're going to add caching at a different layer so that during the build, it also caches those calls during the build. And then it refreshes, however often you want it to. You want to refresh once an hour? Done. You want to refresh once a night at midnight or whatever? Done. So we're going to add, that's going to be one of the enterprise features, because this is something that doesn't really affect small clients. It massively affects big clients. So this is something we're definitely going to talk about. And we're definitely building this right now. We're working with one of our big clients to do that. Anyway, what about a hybrid approach? Pre-render certain routes, SSR other routes if possible. Yeah, it's totally fine, man. It is there in the Scully config. Here, let me pull up my code. There is, if you pull up the config, I think we have something in here called excluded extra routes. No, I think there's a route done plugin where you could remove certain routes, right? Or like, let's say I didn't want to pre-render any of my donut routes. I just wanted to use SSR for them. If I don't ever do that, then Scully will never try and pre-render them. And it will just skip those pages, which means they'll get the homepage pre-rendered for them. So like, yeah, there's definitely ways to not render some of it and to render other pieces of it. Like if you have, yeah, I'm not going to answer other questions, but that's definitely a thing. If you have questions on how to do that, you should come to office hours and we can talk about it. All right, Olu. If data is entered into a form field while the pre-render page is shown, does all that transfer into the app? Yes, I already answered this question, so I'm going to move on. Olu, I had a question about some form auto-reloading during the development. I noticed you used ng-build watch when doing the demo. Does this help with getting close to the ng-serve field during development? Yeah. So I just do it because when I'm building like a plugin for Scully, or I'm building something else that I'm just trying to test the pre-rendered version of the app, I do ng-build watch and npm run Scully watch. That's how, if I'm trying to debug a plugin or I'm trying to debug the pre-build. If I'm just working on Angular, I just use ng-serve and I develop it normally. Okay, so only if you're building something for Scully, like a plugin, or if I'm trying to debug, like maybe there's a bug in the pre-rendered version, then I develop that way as well. So it kind of depends on exactly what we're talking about. So yes, good question though. Shy, with Universal, you always have to add platform checks before accessing document or window. If I understand correctly, with Scully, this is no longer needed as everything is rendered in an actual browser. Yes. So this is one of the cool things. Like, Shy, you might be a fantastic developer who's like, I will never talk to the window of the document, but you might use a third-party plugin that does. And maybe you show up today. Today's Monday. You show up on Tuesday, and your build in production is failing because your third-party plugin did a minor revision that talked to the document. And now it's dead. So like, it's really difficult to keep those universal builds going, and people struggle with it. Some people have no problem with it at all. Others struggle immensely with that exact issue. And so with Scully, you don't have to worry about it. We are adding support to have a pre-render in Universal though. So if you want the speed of Universal, we're going to add a Universal pre-renderer, but so you can have that back. Most apps are not universal friendly. Like most people are not ready to, like most Angular developers I've seen, and I consult with big companies all around. Most of those developers are not ready to write a universal app, like most of them. So it depends on your focuses. Scully is much more friendly for everybody. All right. Concerning the CDN strategy, I believe I saw on the site that the pre-rendering files go to the CDN and the normal build files go to the server. Is that accurate? If yes, what would be the equivalent deployment strategy on a host like Netlify? I would really love to see a deployment strategy on Netlify. So there's a gentleman on Twitter. He loves helping people out. I'm going to show you him on Twitter. His name's Preston Lamb. He's a friend of mine. He's local to where I'm from. Hey, Preston, he has his blog using Scully hosted on Netlify, okay? He actually tweeted a lot about it last night, right? So he's talking about, hey, figuring out some stuff with Netlify and Scully. So if you want to talk to anybody, you can talk to him. But before, when you hosted with Netlify, you just took the results of ng build and you put that on Netlify. Now you're going to take the results of Scully, the Scully build, and put that on Netlify. So there's not a lot changing. It's very, very simple. But if you have any questions specific to what you're working on, people like Preston can help you. Or if you want to come to office hours and show us your project, we can help you. So yeah, good question. Anyway, Brooke, I made it through all the questions, bud.
You did. That was impressive. Very impressive.
Holy geez. Good job. Is there anything else in the chat that I missed, or did I get everybody?
No, I think so. I think we got it all.
Okay.
So I did I put in a link for everybody. If you want to come to the actual workshop of this same presentation, then Aaron is doing a workshop of this at Enterprise NG. So that's November 16th. And it'll be for 3 or 4 hours in to us, our morning.
Yeah. Other people their night. Yeah.
Yeah. And then if you're able to, there are some additional free workshops later in the afternoon. So check out that link. It's just ng-conf.org/workshops, and you can get more information there. And then, yeah, we'd love to see you at the actual Enterprise NG as well. So
yeah,
for sure. Okay, well,
Agreed.
Thank you, Aaron. We always love your presentations, and you always make everybody hungry. So I think we're all ready to go get some lunch or dinner.
I know. I want sushi. I don't know why the donuts make me hungry for sushi. That's what I want.
It's sushi day.
Do
you have a favorite sushi place around here?
Tsunami is good, and it's close. So I go to Tsunami. Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
Anyway.
All right. Well, yeah. Thanks. And then we'll hope to see everybody at Enterprise NG.
See ya. Thanks, Brooke.
Yep. See ya.